Hello and welcome everybody. Today we continue with the Fantasy Fight series. You know, the series where we take two characters in the story and we compare them against each other. Mainly characters we've seen in previous arcs and not really the current arcs, so we don't really know much about them. And so, you know, we look at them, we see what it would be like if they somehow entered a battle with each other, because maybe it's interesting because of their powers or relationships or whatever the sort. And today we are going to take Galdino Mr3 from the Alabaster arc against Ohm, Priest of Enel from the Skypieans arc. Now, I will say, first of all, for those of you who are not up to date, I mean, as far as these three, I'm going to be taking them in the sagas where they appear. So if you already know these characters and you've met them and seen what they're about in the sagas of Skypieans and Alabaster, then there should be no spoilers for you, right? But, you know, just in case you want a specific number of chapters or episodes, I'll put the spoiler tag in the description down below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. Clicking that red button goes a long way on this channel. But without further ado, let's jump in. Now, the reason why this fight is so interesting, right, is just because of their power skill set. So, as I always do, let me think about a scenario, which honestly the best thing I can come up with is that somehow Enel decided to go to the Furverse, decided to go to the Blue Sea, and Alabaster was just somehow the first place he ended up, as he's trying to figure out, you know, where he's going on the Blue Sea, right? Maybe he wants to get the One Piece as well, and he just kind of ends up in, you know, in Alabaster trying to figure out where he's going, and then, you know, ends up in a thing with Baroqueworks. You know, maybe I should do in that case, maybe I should just do a Enel versus Crocodile thing as well. That would be interesting. Next episode idea, let me know what you think. Back to the video at hand of Mr3 versus Ohm. I think the idea is very interesting. Of course, you know, both of them wielding somewhat malleable substances. Of course, one is a devil fruit, one isn't, but somewhat malleable substances. But at the same time, these substances can become hard. One becomes hard as iron, the other becomes as hard as steel, right? And this proved difficult for Zoro on, you know, in both arcs or sagas if you want, and I think that's what makes it really interesting, right? Also, for this case, I will be taking Holy because it seems to be part of his skill set, really. So I will be taking Holy as part of, you know, Ohm when I say Ohm. So let's continue on. On Ohm's side, as far as I remember, he has his sword made out of the clouds that turns into iron. He has the barbed wires in the ground. I'll give him time to set up, right? I'll give him time to set up his attacks and stuff in Alabaster, but he has that going on. You know, he can set up those traps where he makes a kind of, for lack of better words, birdcage. And on the side of Galdino, he has his wax fruit, right? He has his wax fruit that he uses to turn into different objects. It turns into steel. This is always a very simple and interesting power. So let's get into it. So first of all, I will say that Ohm is at a complete disadvantage, mainly because steel is harder than iron, right? If Galdino and Ohm, you know, made a simple sword and then smacked each other for hours, Ohm's sword would break. It would break. So on that hand, Galdino is at a clear advantage as far as the toughness of their substances and, you know, what that entails. But just because it's tougher doesn't mean it's an exact win. As I said before, both of them have malleable stuff. So on one hand, you know, Ohm doesn't need to go directly and hit him and clash with him directly all the time, right? He could just like make it malleable and go around, right? Also at the same time, stuff that we've never seen Galdino do is, you know, stab someone. Well, it's like a malleable object, right? That kind of dodges and kind of slithers its way through to actually hit someone. And on top of that, Ohm has mantra, right? He has his mantra where he can just kind of see your attacks in advance and dodge and avoid and save himself. So that is going to be a very clear obstacle and a very difficult thing for Galdino to overcome, right? Zoro managed to overcome it by, you know, instead of going ahead and trying to overcome and not make him see his moves in advance, he kind of just overpowered him, right? He brought him into a situation where, you know, he wanted him to, you know, go directly head to head, and so he went, you know, did an attack through the wall. So he also kind of couldn't see it, even though he could see it, right? It was a bit outsmarting, a bit overpowering. So in this case, Mr3, I don't see that really happening. I imagine it's going to be more of a clear field when they fight. So I don't see the whole wall thing happening, but I do see it being a challenge for Mr3 to somehow figure out a way to actually land some kind of surprise attack or something on Ohm. And then on top of that, you have Holy, who's helping Ohm set up his attacks around. I don't imagine Holy would actually fight against Mr3. I just imagine he'd help up set up, you know, the cage if he needed to, or whatever other things around. He's kind of just like a helping hand, as he was in the Skypia arc. Now, you know, moving on with the fight, another thing that I envision happening is that, you know, at some point there will be some kind of just all-out brawl, right? As is, you know, with most fights, there will be some times where, you know, the traps will be done, you know, people will kind of evade the traps, get out of the traps, and then we'll just go into a free-for-all, right? It will be just your skill versus my skill, traps aside, surprises aside, we know each other's powers now, let's go at it. And at that point, you probably have Mr3 in his boxing armor thing that he makes. And then, you know, you have Ohm with his sword ready to fight. And then the two of them can go at it, right? And at that point, who can last longer? Who has greater stamina? As far as a fighter, I think Ohm is better, right? He has greater stamina. He's been fighting for a longer time. Galdino is more of a, as he's described, loan shark Galdino. He's not as much a fighter as he is really a gangster, if you will. As far as who can last longer in a fight is definitely Galdino, but as far as whose abilities are equipped better to make it easier for them to last longer, it is Galdino, right? It's a devil fruit. It's not as hard to use, rather than, you know, maybe sword. On top of that, Galdino can, for example, make a block of wax, right, and then set that up and then fight on the side, then also have that, I don't know, maybe he wants to use it as a shield and put it down, maybe he wants to use it as a wall and, you know, maybe slowly box Ohm around. You know, he can keep making a lot of it, while Ohm really, he really can't. So Galdino has a clear advantage there. Now, I do think overall, at the end of the day, it's going to matter how well Galdino can do against the mantra of Ohm, how well he can try figure out a way in which he can gain the advantage, he can, you know, somehow overcome this, because if he doesn't, really it's going to be a lot of hitting and missing, right? A lot of missing going on for Galdino, while Ohm getting all the good attacks. Although if Galdino does protect himself with some kind of shield or something on his body, because he realizes this, then it's going to be a tough battle for Ohm as well. And, you know, in the end, I do see Ohm winning, simply because I don't know how well Galdino is used to adapting in fights and used to kind of looking into a way in which he can win. Rather, he seems like a guy who's just kind of like, this is my ability, this is my skill set. If someone has kind of a skill set which is different and odd to mine, then nothing I can do, right? I don't know. I don't really see him as an adapting fighter. Ohm, on the other hand, I can see him adapting to the fight a little bit, doing other things outside, you know, the regular stuff which we've seen him do. I'm not saying he has all these secret skills we never knew he had, but, you know, he can adapt to the fight, right? So obviously, I think at the end, slight edge to Ohm, simply because he seems more of an experienced fighter. He seems more like his mantra would give him the time and ability to think what he's going to do about the fact that Mr3 has a fruit, which is essentially tougher than his iron, and the fact that, you know, if he doesn't do anything, he's dead. And while Mr3 will struggle with the whole mantra thing. But I will say that if Mr3 does figure out a smart way to deal with the mantra, then it's a wrap for Ohm. It is a wrap for Ohm. But guys, these are my thoughts. This is where I end the video. Let me know what you guys think. Tell me if I'm wrong, if I've misunderstood the characters a bit or their powers, if I've forgotten a power specific of one of the characters. Let me know. As well, please like this video if you like the video and subscribe for more content like this. Let me know other matchups. Let me know other matchups of different characters from different arcs, whatever you'd like to see, guys. If you know someone who needs to hear the truth, please share this video with them. If you have time, watch one of my other videos from this series, from my channel. And if not, thank you for watching this video thus far, guys. This is King KZ. I'll see you in the next one.